Welcome to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, we all know there's a lot of misinformation online, but some of the scariest involves health advice, from scammy supplements to outright dangerous lies. Enter my guest for this episode, a local doctor who's fighting the good fight, debunking myths on social media. Dr. Guy Jones with Oncology Nevada is here with me to talk about that. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ariana.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Did you ever think, in all your years of practicing medicine, med school, all of it, that you would end up being a TikTok influencer?
No, definitely not. I mean, when I was training, it wasn't even a thing, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Nobody knew about TikTok, and even Facebook was limited, so.
So has it been a pretty steep learning curve? Tell me about the process of getting into this.
Well, I've had a lot of help. You know, there's people around me that obviously know more about it and the trends and are talking about, hey, you know, this is a new subject that's coming up. Do you want to talk about it? Is this something of interest? So, you know, I've had a lot of help with that, and that certainly, you know, has been beneficial.
So was there a moment, or what was the moment, you know, where you're online and you're, you know, maybe seeing misinformation or whatever and thinking someone has to step up? Is that what happened? Or tell me how you came to the moment of doing this.
Yeah, you know, when I first got out of training, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go online and kind of dispel all these myths and things. And first thing I did was join all these like support groups online, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be kind of a voice that's gonna explain how these things actually work. And there's like, you know, 50,000 people in some of these support groups, and somebody will ask a question. I'm like, hey, I know the answer to that question, and I'll go and like I'll type in the answer, and by the time you type it in, there's, you know, 200 people ahead of you that have posted a bunch of stuff, and most of which isn't true. And then you go and you post, and it gets like downvoted or something, and you're like, okay, this is bizarre. And so it was just better to have, you know, kind of our own channel and our own message out there.
Yeah, and I can see how something like that could get sucked into the internet black hole. It's so hard to know who you can trust and how to find that information on the internet.
Absolutely, yeah. Not everybody who says they're a doctor is a doctor. You know, just because they look good or sound good doesn't mean that their advice is good. So there's certainly a lot of things like that.
It's also really easy to hide behind handles, like to not show your face, not have your real identity if you're posting on Reddit or something like that, and you see all this just dubious health advice being shared all over the place that is contradictory and could potentially be problematic.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the anonymous sort of messages are always always very dubious. You just certainly want to vet who's saying the thing. So, you know, that's one of the advices I have is just make sure that the people who, you know, check their credentials, do your due diligence, make sure this is somebody who's real.
Yeah, and I think it can be hard. It does run a little bit counter to the way we operate as humans. You know, you see a person who looks knowledgeable and they maybe have credentials after their name, and you hear them saying something on the internet, and you're like, well, yeah, right, that sounds cool. I'm gonna drink this, and it's gonna fix me.
Yep.
And it's scary. So what myths do you encounter in your practice? Are there things that your patients are bringing to you and saying, I'm gonna do this instead of this treatment or whatever that they got on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of conspiracy theories, you know, there's just seems to be a general mistrust of the medical profession, which I don't think a lot of these things are helping. You know, if there's somebody saying, you know, hey, you don't have to do, you know, surgery or chemo or radiation or any of these other medications that are standard, you can just do this other thing, you know, and especially if there's somebody out there who's sort of saying, hey, I did that and it fixed me, then, you know, it sort of does call into question the actual medical professionals and what they have to say. So certainly that has been a big issue and a part of the reason for the channel.
Do you have trouble then convincing those patients you should do this treatment that seems a lot scarier? You know, this is what is medically proven to work over, you know, this tea that someone else found.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's probably the hardest thing, right? It's that Mark Twain quote that it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them they have been fooled. You know, if somebody comes in and they have this in their heads, it's really hard to turn it around, and sometimes you can't, and you just do your best, and you make the best of a bad situation in that situation. Yeah.
Okay, so enter the TikTok channel, and are you also on Instagram too?
Yeah, we have Instagram, Facebook. Yeah.
So what did you start with? What was the first topic that you're like, this is the first thing I want to address?
I think at first we were talking about screenings and the importance of screenings. So, you know, just the various ones that are out there and what populations qualify for it, and why we do those, and why don't we screen for other things. I think those were the first messages, because those have, you know, screenings have such a huge implication in terms of catching cancers early. And so it's just important to get that out. I think that's probably the most life-saving advice we can give.
So you launched some of these videos, sent them out into the ether, then what happened? What feedback did you get?
So, the first few didn't get, a ton of traction, some of it, and we sort of slowly grew the channel. And then there were a few that were just like, just seemed to have caught fire. I wouldn't say exactly went viral, but certainly, had a few thousand more views than the previous ones. And we were like, that's interesting. And so we kept at it. Now we have several of those. And so I think it's been worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, you reach one more person who wouldn't have gotten the message otherwise.
Yeah, if we help
then you've
one
done a
person,
service.
100%. Yeah, if we help one person, this is all worth it.
Yeah. Okay. So some of the myths you have debunked, some of the recent ones at least that I was looking at, had to do with sunscreen. Why are we hitting sunscreen so hard?
There were, sort of things seemed to happen in waves, but the sunscreen thing was going around as how people that wear more sunscreen get more skin cancers. Therefore, it's the sunscreen that's causing the skin cancers. And of course, that's not what it is. It's just that people that are out in the sun more tend to use sunscreen more. They're also the ones that are more at risk of cancer, or light-skinned people like me that are more at risk of getting a sunburn will use more sunscreen. And so we're more likely to get cancer in the first place. So that was a big one. And so we wanted to combat that.
Yeah, this is like the ice cream causing shark attacks correlation map. Have you seen that? Where like shark attacks go up at the same time that ice cream sales go up. It's clearly got to be related. It's that correlation versus causation thing that's, you see it a lot in the misuse of data.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, okay, what else? What else is on the must debunk list for you?
I think there's, certainly the conspiracy theories are big. I mean, I tell people, doctors get cancer too. I mean, we're not just hiding this cure that's out there, and our families get cancer, and we recommend the same things for them as we do for our patients. So this is not some big money-making scheme out there that people are just trying to sell you surgery and chemo and radiation. That's just not the case. I mean, we want people to get better. We would desperately love to have a cure for all these things. We just don't. It doesn't exist. If it did, we would use it on every patient.
Has that started happening more often throughout your career, or has this like distrust always been a factor?
I mean, it certainly seems like it's gotten more over the years, but I mean, it's certainly been present the entire time I've been practicing for the last 15 years. Do I see it more lately? Yeah, probably. I do think there's more of that. It's probably just as the internet has grown, people are getting more of those messages in front of them, and therefore they're believing more of those just because they're getting hit so many ways with it.
Yeah, this is a problem we have in journalism a lot. It's just the general devaluing of information, and that happens kind of across the board.
Oh yeah,
so
for
no matter what source you're hearing, I think people are just like, I don't believe any of it.
Yeah,
which is hard because somewhere in there is the truth.
Sure. Right.
But yeah, getting harder to find it. Okay, so one of the videos, I really thought it was cool. You opened it up to questions from the viewers, and as I think you said when you'd gotten some more followers, and all these people commented, and it was a lot of cancer patients, and I don't even think they were local. They were from all over the place, asking questions about why am I feeling this way, or what's going on. How much agency do you have when it comes to responding to questions like this from people who are on the internet and not even your patients?
Yeah, well, as a physician, I mean, I can answer any medical question that gets presented to me, but sometimes it's not appropriate simply because I don't know their history, right? Sometimes it's pretty straightforward. Can, this treatment cause this? Well, sometimes it's a yes or no. Sometimes it's, hey, in my situation, what's the best treatment? Well, can't answer that one. I need to know your medical history. So that's another point we kind of get out to people is that, only you and your doctor know your medical history. And so you guys have to, kind of talk about this and, together. And a random person on the internet is not going to know your medical history. So just because something worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because it may be a totally different situation. And the person who's giving you the advice doesn't know that, and the patient may not know that.
Is there liability there at all for you? Anything you have to be concerned about?
I mean, you have to be careful and not give bad information, but I mean, I don't think there's a lot of liability in that sense. I mean, I haven't certainly heard of doctors getting in trouble for doing that. If they're giving solid, reasonable advice, I think it's fine.
Would you ever get to the point where you took, I don't know if you've seen the duets that they do on social media, where you take someone who's just blasting bad information out there and just fact check in real time? Are you going to go that direction?
I would love to do it. Or the other thing is just get somebody like in a setting like this and just kind of debate them. Say, hey, why do you believe that? I would love to know, because I do want to get to the root of this in a lot of these cases. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes they don't want to answer. I doubt I'm ever going to get somebody who's willing to sit down with me like that. No. But I would love to do that as well. But yeah, the fact checking thing, certainly, absolutely.
Yeah. I know, I wonder, I see those sometimes and think, do these people really believe what they're selling? Or are they just, they have no principles at all? It's fascinating.
You know, it's a good question, and I always kind of, believe that in my heart of hearts, when somebody actually was facing this significant cancer diagnosis, that they would ultimately fall back on, the medical advice, what the physician is saying, things like that. But people don't always do that. I mean, they really will go off on this tangent of something they saw on some video on Instagram, and they'll just do it. And then they'll come back, months later, and they will have an incurable case, and they can take a highly curable case and make it incurable within a few months, and it breaks your heart, but it happens. It certainly happens.
Man, powerful stuff. All right, so if people want to check out your videos, where can they go?
So Oncology Nevada has Instagram, Facebook, and obviously TikTok we've talked about, and so it's just Oncology Nevada, and you can search that, and that's our channels that's our names on all the locations.
Yeah, worth a watch.
Thank
all right,
you.
Dr. Jones, sit tight. I'm going to be back with you in a sec, because coming up on Face the State, when he's not making videos for social media, Dr. Jones is treating patients at Oncology Nevada. We will talk about his day job and what new treatments are making the cancer battle easier. That's after the break.